Hello beautiful people, how are you today? We are doing another video with Laurel Aston. A lot of things have somewhat changed for the better. If you're following world politics right now, a lot of things are changing with the governmental agencies and all the secret governmental agencies, and a lot of things are coming out. Laurel specifically now has basically taken a hiatus from everything and has been really focusing on herself and trying to get her memory back and make sense of all of the games and mind games and false memory syndrome that they have implanted in her and done to her since she was a child. So these things are very tricky and very difficult to understand. Now, this video we're going to be covering a lot of different things about what happened to her, about her past. We're going to cover the episode with the recent handler / fake doctor, CIA Operative Dr. Duve, who has also been here in Cancun. She has had a makeover, and I recognized her. Her and another agent were following me, but I'm not going to get into that. So I would like you to open your ears, open your mind, and open your heart, and listen to what Laurel has to say, because it's very important, because she is getting her memory back and she has a lot of new details about her past and things that she is just figuring out and starting to understand. Things about all the people that have been around her, which pretty much have been CIA handlers or operatives, are on the CIA payroll. So Laurel, let's start out with the first question for our viewers and listeners today. What would you like to share with the public, first of all?
Well, regaining my memory has been difficult. My programming started at birth, if not in the womb, which is how victims of MK Ultra are programmed. And basically everything you think you know, everything you think you found out is a lie, as a general rule of thumb. Some of the scenarios, elaborate scenarios created around me as a child, made it very difficult to get to the truth. And it's been even harder because I was held as a political prisoner of America, utilized by the U.S. military, Intel, CIA, through their Black Ops child trafficking program, which are Freemasons in the CIA and every branch of the U.S. military. They are occultists. So the people actually at the top, pulling all the strings in this child trafficking, human mind control, slave trading networks, are the Freemasons. They're very powerful. They're occultists. Some of them worship Satan. They practice sorcery, and they practice black magic, witchcraft, sex magic. The essence of black magic and the occult are used in mind control, particularly sex magic, sexual humiliation, along with torture, sleep deprivation, and drugging. So, because the U.S. military is so heavily involved in child trafficking, they are the #1 child traffickers in the world. They are an imperialistic military regime with a base in every country and every country on this planet. And so they can traffic children and women and trafficked them all over the world with absolutely no record on U.S. military aircraft under the security and veil of national security and spreading freedom and democracy. Because of who I am and what I know, the American government wanted to keep this from getting out. I was a victim of child trafficking. The Nichols, Wiley Dick Nichols and Carol Jean Starkey Nichols, got me. I had first believed at age 4. I'm still not completely sure about that. With false documentation, they did this to a number of little girls. And I was a disposable child soldier, assassin, operative, and sex slave. So the American government wanted to cover this up at all costs. I've been held for the last 7 years as a political prisoner, unable to leave America, with no real identity, unable to have a bank account, work a regular job. I had to work for cash off the books. I worked 12 to 17 hours a day, 6 days a week for the last 7 years. I suffered tremendously, and when I first regained my memory, the American government's tactic was to try and take me out. They sent a series of assassins after me, such as Harry Bay from Harry Bay, USA. He is CIA. He is mind control programmer, child trafficker. He won an award and has pictures of himself with George Bush Sr. And Arnold Schwarzenegger for his work with minority underprivileged children. I can tell you for a fact that he's a pedophile and was having sex with and abducting a number of children. A series of assassins came after me. I tried to run to the one person I thought could help me. And ironically, when a mind control victim tries to turn to that one person they think can help them, it's typically the person who's been planted in their life to put a bullet in them. I started to go to Auburn, California from Los Angeles to see a Tamara Keller. And it turns out that, of course, she was a CIA plant. On the way, I was boxed in by 2 cars, and they kept me from being able to make a turn and tried to force me on this little road up into the mountains, and then a truck came along and ran my car off the cliff. Not completely off it, but it was dangling. And when the police arrived, the people that had perpetrated this attempted hit on me were, first of all, in a celebratory mood and excited that they had at least managed to score running my car off a cliff, but they were disappointed that they hadn't killed me. They all got together and told the police that there was someone else driving my vehicle and that they got out and ran up the mountain and I moved over behind the wheel. That's ridiculous and couldn't have happened. The driver's side was completely smashed in and no one could have gotten out and ran up the mountain. So fortunately the police figured that out. After that, I was vocal enough that the assassination attempts sort of slowed down a little bit. I think they were kind of regrouping and trying to figure out what to do. And in the meantime, my hair started falling out. I developed boils, hives on my face, and like a rash on my body. And what I realize now is that they were injecting me with mind control drugs and large doses of histamines, which causes psychosis. Drugs used to knock out the thyroid.
How are they doing this? I mean, how are they getting to you to do this?
They were injecting me through the belly button.
No, I mean, how? Like, people?
People. I had a roommate, Kimber Bro, who was a CIA op involved with human mind control slavery. She was involved with that, and she would just give them access to me. And as a mind control victim, you don't remember what's happened to you afterwards. They'll use like a taser. I woke up a number of times with burn marks on my neck. And that was after a detective, John Chavez, from the LAPD entered my life in a complete setup. Somebody smashed everybody's car windows and stole things out of their cars. And Detective John Chavez shows up, and all of a sudden he becomes very interested in me, stopping by to say hello and ask for a cup of tea. And I know once he was showing me his taser, and I have time loss, and I just remember waking up in the morning with burn marks on my neck. But honestly, at that stage in the game, was too under to know, what had really happened. I was very suspicious of John Chavez, but I was also being heavily drugged, and certainly large doses of histamines and mind control drugs makes it very hard to put anything together. And when I think I became vocal enough, particularly after I got to New York, and there were enough, well-known people informed about who I was and what was going on, that it became really a bad idea to put a hit on me and kill me. And so the American government decided to try to drive me crazy, drive me into poverty, homelessness, drive me insane so that they could get me committed, which is typically their game plan. They don't want to off large numbers of mind control victims, so they just set out to drive them insane, and they want them broke, homeless, and committed to a mental institution. I survived one attack after another. I survived people around me conducting satanic ritual abuse, mind control, constant emotional abuse, and it's really tough. It's CIA gang stalking. It's occult gang stalking. And they even created staged, elaborate scenarios which involved dirty cops, dirty attorneys, dirty cops feeding me ridiculous, wrong information, dirty cops staging scenarios to make things look a certain way. It's just, my Supreme Court documents were completely altered. Judge Sherman was my attorney, who's actually an occultist who was set up on me to destroy my case, admitted to losing all the crucial evidence in a $250 million lawsuit. And when Judge Sherman finally issued a subpoenaed her, she was held in contempt of court because she was holding my records and files and wouldn't even release them, which is illegal. Then he later had it erased from the Supreme Court computers and told me in front of employees at the Supreme Courthouse, acting like I was crazy or delusional, that he had never signed such an order. He would remember it if he did, and it wasn't in the computer. However, I had made about 15 copies of it. They were all stolen. I had given some to Dr. John Mermanelsky, who I later discovered to be an occultist. She is also a CIA mind control programmer, as is her mother. Everybody around me was a setup. I gave some to some other friends. I won't mention their names, and they got every one of them. But I found one, and so I was able to confront him. And then Judge Sherman all of a sudden remembered, oh yes, he did issue a contempt order on Carmen Grion, who was an occultist involved in child trafficking. I had so many elaborate scenarios, and I had Judge Sherman in the Supreme Court lying, Joanna Ortiz altering my Supreme Court documents, dirty cops like Detective Valentini. Right after Carmen Grion admitted to losing the crucial evidence, he arrested me. And under the guise that she had said I tried to kill her, or told her I was going to kill her, he had zero evidence. It was thrown out, and Detective Valentini is in a lot of trouble. This is the stuff I was dealing with. And what they really basically tried to do was continue to drug me and drive me crazy and see to it that I couldn't work or make any kind of living. And by having to work 12 to 17 hours a day, 6 days a week, exhaustion, stress, poverty really played on my mind, along with the fact that I was being drugged on a regular basis and programmed. One of my roommates was a CIA operative, Jen Young Kim. She represented herself as a nursing student at Staten Island Nursing College, and said she had a full-time job as well as Barry Atonga. They were both supposedly full-time employees and full-time students. And when I lost my job at Lenox Hills Physical Therapy on 82nd Street in New York City, they were involved in programming me. I was being sexually assaulted, drugged while I was working there. All of a sudden, Jin Young Kim and Barry Atonga quit work and school and were suddenly home all day, every day, as long as I was. They left the house when I did to go for job interviews, and one morning I woke up and I had been injected in the belly button. It hurt, and I ran a Q-tip in my belly button and pulled out a small bloody piece of surgical gauze, and my belly button started to bleed. I don't know what she injected me with, but I do know that what they were doing to me caused deep brain fog, memory loss, psychosis. It was really hard to make sense of anything, particularly with all the, there were dirty cops and, dirty judges like Judge Sherman. Everything around me was a setup. I think anybody real was too scared to help me. And because this involved the biggest people, some of the most powerful people in the world, they had the power to make it look however they wanted to make it look to anybody legitimate who wants to look into this. Falsely documenting child trafficking victims is real, or having child trafficking victims bred who just assume identities and never have a real identity is common in the MK Ultra child assassin program. So it's been tough, but since I've been able to come to Cancun, I have not been working, and we've been detoxing, and I've been doing the right frequencies and things to heal myself and balance. And I've been able to sort some things out. I've regained a lot of memory. And I figured out that, as it pertains to the Aga Khan, I grew up believing I had been, when I was in Kenya, not in America. When I came to America, they erased my memory. But when I was in Kenya, I grew up believing that I was born a Smiley. And for some reason, my father, the Aga Khan, was keeping me a secret. Now, all Ismailis are heavily brainwashed. They are programmed. They are an occult. They are a satanic cult. They practice, sorcery. It's something of a sex cult, and that the Aga Khan will choose a little girl to bless her by having sex with her. That there are baby breeding programs, baby switching, child trafficking is rampant. Ismailis all know about it. And they believe that the Aga Khan is God in the flesh. They believe he is a living God. They do not pray to Allah. They call themselves Muslims, they're not Muslims. They don't pray to Allah, they pray to the Aga Khan. And they believe he's their father. I mean, from the richest to the poorest Ismaili, they hand over as much as 50% of their income. And tragically, some of the poorest Ismailis will even go without food to be able to, all Ismailis are supposed to donate 30% of what they make to the Aga Khan, who is rumored to be the richest man in the world and hoarding trillions of dollars. But if you're a Ismaili, you have to donate 30% of your income. Tragically, this income is not being used to help people because their own Ismaili people who are starving to death are brainwashed into believing they need to, in order to be holy and pure and donate money to God, Karim Aga Khan, they should do without food or do without whatever they have to do without in order to donate their money to God, their Father. I had contact periodically throughout most of my life with Karim Aga Khan. And he led me, he was my programmer. He used me as a child soldier, assassin, operative. He's pedophile. And he used me and ran me with other children as an assassin. And I would be invited to a Smiley events or some big event where the Aga Khan was there, and I never understood. I was very confused as a little girl as to why the other two kids and the rest of the family was public and why I was always a secret. And I was told that I had to be protected. And this is, by the way, the lie that they tried to tell me when I regained my memory, that they had been trying to protect me. The Aga Khan, Karim Aga Khan, always made it seem that he was trying to protect me, but what was happening was out of his control. He was just trying to make deals to help me. And in fact, my life could not have been any harder than it was. And then when I regained before I regained my memory, the Aga Khan re-entered my life. In Los Angeles, I was given business cards, which only the family are given business cards, except for the very head of the American Aga Khan Foundation, and they're allowed business cards. Other than that, only the family are allowed business cards. I was given business cards. And the Ismailis were all treating me as if I were someone of great importance. If you look online, there are even foreign newspaper clippings in Pakistani and Indian newspapers. And I know that there were some in other foreign newspapers about my appearance at a fundraiser. It was an event, an Ismaili event by Karim Aga Khan to raise money for Pakistan, for the earthquake victims. So I would always be invited to these events, and all his brainwashed, mind-controlled followers who have their name, birth date, and a roll number recorded into a book, which only U.S. military mind-controlled slaves have their name, birth date, and a roll number recorded into a book, although some just have a number. These brainwashed Ismailis who are just really dysfunctional. All of them are, as you would imagine, in this bizarre mind control cult. They're all severely psychotic, bipolar, split and multiple personalities. Which, for someone who's not an expert, that can be very hard to detect. A multiple personality can be very hard to detect for someone who's not a psychologist or who is not an expert on this. And they would all gather around me, like at the last Ismaili event I went to in Los Angeles, which made the newspapers, foreign newspapers. The Ismailis were all gathering around me. Oh my God, she looks just like His Royal Highness. Oh no, she looks just like Princess Salma. No, she looks just like Zara. So they were playing the role they had been given to keep up this wrong notion in my mind that Prince Karim Aga Khan was my actual father, when in fact he was my programmer. I was honored at a banquet in Orange County, and then I was taken to do a live television broadcast on a cable show. Knowing everything I know now, and with the memory that I have, although I was shown, it was live, okay, so I couldn't check a TV guide, I couldn't, there was no way to really check it. And I was very busy, and I was shown the television interview that I did. It was tape recorded, it was shown to the Ismailis. I have reason to believe that this never aired. I mean, I doubt that it did, because it would have left too much evidence, and he would want to be in control of anything like that. So I doubt he would have left that much evidence behind for people to be able to find. However, I mean, in Beverly Hills, I was representing him and producing the partnership block. So there are a number of high-level celebrities and high-level people who do know that I was working for Prince Kareem Aga Khan in Beverly Hills. So, you know, that's just to give you some idea of these really elaborate staged charades that made it very confusing to figure out the truth with only pieces of memory. And even more confusing given the fact that police were really not doing anything to protect me in New York. I thought they were, and now I realize that a lot of the police I thought that were on my side and helping me were actually part of these elaborate charades, and they weren't doing anything while these people were coming into Lenox Hills Physical Therapy and sexually assaulting me, forcing me through radiation, drugging me.
If I do remember, you know, they would show their presence after you would leave work. To give, I want people to understand that what they do is they act like morale boosters. They act like, oh, we're watching. Oh, we're on your side. We're making a case. They're not going to get away with this.
That's right.
And we're here. Don't worry. This is about a case, and we're documenting everything, and this and this and this. People, I know it's a big charade because cops are frontline enforcers. Most of them are mind control themselves.
Not most of them, but some of them.
No, actually a lot of them, specifically in America, because with Bush Sr., when he got into office, what most people forget is when America, you could drive around America a few blocks and not see a cop. See, people have forgotten what Bush did when he increased the police force. What he did specifically when he did this is he started to bring in more mind control, young cops, Freemason cops, military cops from Desert Storm, from his operation, from people, and it just grew into the massive police force that we have today, and people really don't realize actually what happened. So most of the cops on the police force today are actually ex-military.
And that's where they're subjected to mind control in the U.S. military.
And when you have other cops that aren't subjected to mind control, well, these cops that are enforcers are mind control programmers. They can get you, and they can put something in your drink, knock you out while go over to their house or whatever, and then they got you and you don't even know. So this is what I want people to understand about cops, because even most cops don't even know that they're mind control victims. And the ones that do know, they're enforcers of even the cops, and especially the other people that are gang stalking victims and victims of the CIA, like Miss Aston. Go ahead, what you're saying?
Yeah, that is absolutely true. They were making their presence known, you know, on my way to work or when I would leave work. And yeah, I really thought they were on my side. They made it seem like, oh, they're not going to get away with this. You know, we're here to protect you. Well, I mean, in hindsight, I spent 7 years in New York City, and I was assaulted and brutalized, and I was assaulted at work in a Chinese clinic. I practiced, I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine, and days before I left New York City. So unfortunately, it was, you know, to be perfectly honest, it was a very sad reality for me to realize that they really weren't on my side. And, you know, I had been assaulted from the minute I got to New York City, and I was assaulted days before I left New York City, at work. So it made it impossible to figure out what's what and who's who, because I dealt with liars, dirty cops who were put on me, you know, people like Judge Sherman in the Supreme Court, who was a liar and a and was actually caught. And from what I understand, he is very embarrassed. But these people need to go to jail. I mean,
judges point blank in the United States. Yeah, you have to be a Freemason to be a judge. Yeah. That's a given, and a lawyer in the United States.
Well,
that's a given.
So right. So the bottom line is, I mean, these people need to go to jail. They're getting away with what they're doing. People involved in child trafficking and brutalizing little children with mind control slavery, making them child sex slaves, using them in child porn, and a few, like myself, become child assassins and operatives. This is horrific. You don't know what they do to us, with the programming. Well, you don't know what a child sex slave goes through. So when somebody like Judge Sherman is willingly complicit with them, he's enabling them. And they can't do it without all the little Judge Shermans and dirty attorneys, people like Carmen Brion and Detective Valentini of the 44th Precinct in the Bronx. And all of the State Department funded anti-trafficking groups are actually fronts, and they're working for these people. ECPAT, GEMS, Fiona Nathans and Safe Horizon, Shauna Lynn's and Sanctuary for Families, Shelley Branscombe and C.I.A. They are all working for these people.
Actually, I'd like to point out, and please, people, take note of this. Please, I know you covered it in one of the other videos. Please expose the shill, Ted Gunderson, and reiterate the story about what he did to you. Because whenever you type on YouTube or go online and you type in human trafficking, that scumbag's name comes up like he's the foremost authority of it, and he is a shill. He's a CIA, FBI, pedophile, Freemason shill. They say he's dead, but who cares?
Who knows?
People need to know her personal story about Gunderson, and I'm just tired of seeing people post Gunderson this, Gunderson that, because yeah, he does tell the truth. I mean, who else is going to tell the truth better than the people that commit these crimes? But Laurel, explain to them about Ted Gunderson, please.
Well, I was put in touch with Ted Gunderson through Tamara Keller, who's a CIA op with a fake name. She was involved with Ted Gunderson. I got in touch with him. There would still be the records on my Gmail, aston.laurel@gmail.com. And at first we were emailing each other through Hushmail. And I called him on my cell phone. I had his private cell. And Ted Gunderson arranged some secret conversations so that we could plan a way to get me out and into a safe house. A lot of these conversations are still in my, Gmail, Hushmail. Basically, he was setting me up to be disappeared. Had I followed through with what Ted Gunderson had planned for me, I wouldn't be here right now. And I would also say that Jenny Richards, through Tamara Keller, offered to, as an ordained minister, now she is a high-level Freemason and a CIA op involved in human mind control slavery. She was with supposedly Pat's group in South Africa. A lot of human trafficking and slavery coming out of Africa and in Africa. As an ordained minister, the CIA op, Jenny Richards, was going to personally put me on the plane, because she had the authority to do that, and fly me to a ranch in India where I could live and, exist. Again, had I gotten on that plane, I would have been disappeared. The whole idea was to make me disappear before I became too visible. Because now, from what I understand, governments all over the world are demanding answers about child trafficking in the U.S. military. The American government should be held accountable. There has been a very organized and well-orchestrated cover-up involving all of their fake State Department-funded anti-trafficking groups, C.I.A, Fiona Nathans and Safe Horizons, ridiculous. This woman, after everything the government has done to me, I've been raped, brutalized, bludgeoned, mutilated. I mean, they left me mutilated. I've been forced to carry multiple rape babies against my will, which were sold right into the military at birth. And this woman had the audacity to say, we'll put you on a plane with a suitcase to Kenya, Nairobi. That's all I can do for you. Take it or leave it. Shilpi Goswami at the Bronx Legal Aid Society in New York investigated this and called Fiona Nathans, and Fiona Nathans admitted it. And but she threw in then, oh, okay, you're right. I guess we'll have to give her work papers. So they were going to dump me in Kenya with no work papers, no money, no financial aid, no one to turn to, nowhere to stay. This was the help from their agency. That was just a way to kill me. So just know that all these organizations that are so-called anti-trafficking are fronts. They're actually working with Fiona Nathans, Shelley Branscombe, all of these people. They're working with the Freemasons. They're working with this occult, U.S. military, child trafficking, child sex slavery, child operatives, being picked out of this program. They work for them. The only people that get any freedom at all are the ones that the U.S. military had no use for. So, I mean, any child with any beauty or brains or athletic ability has no shot at all. The ones that the U.S. military didn't need exist in these programs for human experimentation, breeding, to brainwash them with their ideology. I mean, it doesn't make any sense when America is in such a deep depression that gyms and these groups are spending millions of dollars of keeping foreign-born or American-born sex slaves who have severe mental disabilities and drug addictions united with their rape babies and babies born of sex slavery. Unless you understand what's really going on. And the American taxpayer is paying for this. While degenerate men get rich off these programs, the American taxpayer is funding it.
And I would like you, Laurel, to really explain the situation with Dr. Duve from South Padre Island, and specifically how they use these rape babies and the torture of women to actually go after the women's money, their foundation, to strip them of any legal mental stability, so they can just basically take away their life through these rape babies that they go on to become assassins for the government, and then that money is continually funneled back to the Nazi Freemasonic Satanic CIA. It's a vicious circle that they continuously repeat on their own child sex slave assassins when they get a little bit of money and a little bit of control of their life, and then when they start to actually do what the government doesn't want them to do, they are basically ripped down and put into poverty when they've made millions, if not billions of dollars. And another thing that I want people to understand is specifically our government, when you are born and you are given a birth certificate, the straw man bond still exists with these people. So the government actually, when they give a person a straw man bond, in secret, they get $1 million for that child, and then they start trading that $1 million secretly on the stock market, that eventually, by the time you're dead, is worth billions of dollars, and they pocket that money. It is just a vicious circle, basically controlled by the IRS, which the IRS basically just collects taxes for the British government. So when you break this all down, the CIA, the NSA, all of these organizations are owned by Britain. They're not owned by America. America owns stock in these secret governmental corporations, like NASA also is owned by Britain. America only holds stock in these. So when you get to the root of the problem, and when you get to actually seeing who is to blame for all of this, look at the Windsors, look at the Rothschilds, look at the richest people in the world, and it was estimated that the Rothschilds in equity, that's their land and property that they own, not their money, but the property that they own, they could food and clothe the world 5 times over. And this is all money that they've stolen from people like Miss Aston, from people like you and me, through the IRS and so many other diabolical ways which people really don't understand. Now, Miss Aston, could you please explain to the people about the CIA handler, Dr. Duve, who I had to deal with in South Padre Island and Port Isabella, where her business is, and how they tried to reintroduce this rape baby back into Miss Aston's life. So could you please elaborate on this?
Well, okay, first of all, I can't be certain that it wasn't just an incredibly well planned out charade.
Exactly.
The rape, the girl that they did everything in the world to make me believe was the rape baby of one of my rapists was, first of all, the spitting image of my rapist, who was a CIA assassin, the head of the CIA. He's one of the wealthiest men in the world. He's wildly wealthy. He was paid a fortune to breed rape babies for the CIA. His name is Stephen, or he goes by the name Stephen Benyon. He uses a lot of different names. So this girl, Jordan Duve, is a carbon copy of him. I do know that the rape baby I had facial deformity, and Jordan Duve is not only a carbon copy of Stephen Benyon, but she had the same bizarre facial deformity. So while I can't be sure this wasn't an elaborate charade, I'm not convinced that she's not the rape baby either.
The deformity, I'd like to point out to people, is a genetic defect of what they do. Is they actually inject these seeds of the rape babies with specific genetics of these so-called higher Nazis, and then they breed them in with the woman's seed, and this is all a scientific thing that they do, and the genetic deformity comes from basically inbreeding, because you can see it in their face. You know, it's a genetic deformity, but it is degeneration. And
well, I mean, Jordan Duve facial deformity fits one of the main patterns of facial deformity in CIA genetic experiments. When I started working at Dr. Susan Duve's clinic, Duve Wellness, Natural Living in Port Isabel, things got bizarre very quickly. I had programmers coming in with noises going off, programming noises, sounds going off on their cell phones every 5 minutes while I was conducting a physical therapy session. C.I.A, Chinese medicine. Now, this may not mean much to any of you, but if you're a mind control victim, having your program, having like the standard CIA mind control programming sounds going off every 5 minutes can be potentially fatal. I mean, in a sense that, you know, it can trigger you to do self-destructive things, or, you know, you don't know, and it can take weeks or months for you to even figure out just how deeply it's affected you. It's not like the room spins around, or you can though feel. Sometimes they've done something to me and I've become sick immediately, but you might even feel fine and you won't know for weeks or months what's been done or what's been laid into your subconscious. And this wouldn't affect a normal person, but it affects somebody who's been mind controlled from birth. I mean, like a puppet. Your brain has been turned into a computer, basically. So this started immediately. The bizarre people coming in, all of them occultists. South Padre Island, Port Isabel is a satanic hive. Everyone's practicing the occult and witchcraft. I know they're planning to, I heard that they were planning to put some kind of space shuttle program in there that you can bet will be a cover for something. It's 45 minutes from a major naval base, U.S. naval base in Corpus Christi that is heavily involved with child trafficking, particularly from Mexico, but all over the world. I saw some really horrific things there at the U.S. naval base in Corpus Christi, Texas. And so while I was working at Dr. Duve's, one day the phone was ringing and someone calling herself Wendy Hoffchild wanted to make an appointment. But she kept calling back and emphasizing, this is Hoffchild, this is Hoffchild. And she was trying to figure her schedule out, and I don't know how many times this woman called back and said, oh, this is Wendy Hoffchild. And then Jordan Duve walks in. And Jordan Duve is about 5'7". She, I don't know how to say this. You can tell by her physical appearance. She's really an obese slob. That she has no self-respect. She has no respect for others. She really, you can tell from being around her that she has no problem doing anything to anyone. She dressed like a hooker. She dressed in skin-tight clothing. She had what I later found out were fake Victoria's Secret, heavily padded push-up, wonder bra, fake double D breasts. And she was 16 and a half years old. Dr. Susan Duve and she said that she no longer went to public school. She'd been taken out 2 years ago. Now this is typical of all high-level child assassins. They're taken out of school so that there's no record of the kid being out of school for 3 months or 6 months. And where were they during this period of time? It doesn't look odd. Because after a while, you have to start answering to someone. So I do know for a fact, although I can't confirm that she was taken out of school then, I can confirm that at 16, she was no longer going to school, and she was up at the clinic all the time when she wasn't at home, laying on the couch watching television and, eating junk food and expanding her ever-growing waistline. So she comes up to the clinic while other kids are in school, and she is dressed like a hooker. The double D fake breasts were pretty bizarre. I don't know many women that allow their 16-year-old daughter to wear, the kind of padded push-up bra that makes her look like she has these double D breasts that are just pushed. It was just ludicrous, ridiculous. She has platinum blonde hair, naturally platinum blonde hair, and green eyes, and she's the spitting image of Stephen Binion. There are pictures of him on, I think, Instagram or one of his accounts online when he was doing steroids and he was young, and he's got these gigantic steroid-induced muscles, and that picture, that's the closest to Stephen Binion's true face as you're gonna get. This man's a CIA assassin. He's had numerous faces. You can even tell by looking at all the pictures of him online that his face has been altered many times. But that picture of him with these huge muscles, when he was just muscle-bound, is really his real face. And you compare that to pictures of Jordan Duve, you can see that she looks like his kid. And she has the same bizarre facial deformity that I saw in his rape baby. So she had just dyed her hair reddish brown, my color, and said, oh, I've always wanted reddish brown hair, I don't know why. When she walked in the door, of course, Wendy Hoffchild had just called again and said, this is Wendy Hoffchild. And then Jordan Duve walks in, and she greets me by saying, "Hi, hi," like a 4-year-old baby, and flapping her hand the way a baby would. And she was trying to act like a little bitty, like 4 or 5-year-old baby girl. It was just creepy as anything. I mean, it was just really disturbing. And so then I meet Karen Hall. And Karen Hall is an occultist who was feeding me with a lot of, I'm sure, disinformation. And I saw some very bizarre transactions between Karen Hall and Jordan Duve, like Karen Hall touching Jordan Duve's breasts, or talking about going to the beach with her and saying, well, we'll put Jordan in a Victoria's Secret Wonder Bra and some Daisy Dukes, and I'll chain myself to her. Ooh, chaining myself to her, that could be fun. I mean, this is a 60-year-old woman talking about chaining herself to a 16-year-old, touching her inappropriately, saying highly inappropriate things to this girl. And it's orgies and nudity, public nudity, and sex orgies are part of their religion. They believe that it's holy, and that if you can't be nude and share oral, vaginal, and anal sex with your fellow devil worshippers, you're not holy enough and pure enough to get into what their version of satanic heaven is.
That is pure witchcraft, people. I mean, that's point blank what it is. It's witchcraft.
Well, what people don't realize is it's also occult mind control programming. So mass numbers of people are being told that this is holy and pure, and they're innocent in the eyes of their Lord, the light bearer. But what it really is mass sexual humiliation to keep them all brainwashed and under Satan's control. Sexual humiliation is a huge part of mind control programming, as is sex magic, which is also used in these rituals. There are sometimes sacrifices, animal and human, which, you know, the first time I guess anyone sees that, it's horrific and shocking. So that combined with drug use in these rituals, and then mass sexual humiliation and sex magic, it's basically a mass mind control programming session. Then one day, Jordan Duve goes over to a big chair and sits down with her arms above her head, and she's like,
"Oh, I'd like to point out what she didn't say is, when you sit with your arms above your head, with your hands crossed behind your back, that's a Freemason symbol, and it's also can be used as a trigger." Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, she sat with her hands up above her head, and she said, "This is how it all started," and then she slowly slid down and out of the chair, purposefully, knowingly trying to simulate childbirth, dropped onto the floor, curled up in a fetal position, and then sat up with her thumb in her mouth. This is a 16-and-a-half-year-old girl, a very large, rotund girl, acting like a 4 or 5-year-old kid. So this is very disturbing. This is bizarre. So these are some of the types of things that were going on. Then I was getting messages from someone pretending to be my friend, who then hinted that he was Stephen Binion, that, "Oh, I just met my daughter for lunch. I took her to Taco Bell. My daughter's kind of cute. She's really chubby. She's kind of a cute girl." Well, Jordan Duve isn't cute at all. She's, got some really bizarre facial deformity and some real issues that just make her so unattractive, spiritually and in every other way. But then Dr. Duve would walk in and say, "Oh, Jordan just met her father for lunch." And then something like, "Well, I wish I could get her to stop eating Taco Bell, but it's her favorite." So, of course, there's a real effort here to make me believe that Jordan Duve is the rape baby. I think also hoping that I would just snap, because when I was raped and forced to have that rape baby, I was tortured. I was drugged and held under armed guard. I was sometimes not even allowed out of the bedroom. and I was tortured throughout the whole pregnancy. And Barry Gordon would be there laughing, saying, "Oh, ha, 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 Laurel, don't worry. You're not going to have to raise it. We're taking it when it's born." Stephen Binion was paid large sums of money to breed, these babies and sell them right into the U.S. military at birth. Again, there are a lot of elaborate charades going on, but the whole time I was and Stephen Binion posed as my husband. Stephen Binion was my mind control programmer and handler in the CIA. So when the CIA received, $2-3 million for a job that I was doing under mind control, Stephen Binion took a lion's share of that. And at the end, when I just couldn't take another moment of him, and he had raped and bred me, I'd say about 3 times, and I was giving fertility drugs. So, I don't know how many rape babies I actually had because I wasn't conscious for some of it. And I there's no way of knowing, if I had 1 or 3. I just couldn't take another minute of him, and although he certainly, from everything I saw, appears to be one of the wealthiest men in the world, we lived all over the world in fabulous mansions. He had sports cars and helicopters and planes and yachts. And I escaped him all over the world, and I was always sent back to him when I couldn't take it anymore, and I snapped. And I decided that if he was going to keep bringing me back and torturing me this way, and forcing rape babies on me that were sold at birth to the CIA, destroying my body, and then screwing other women in my house, and Barry Gordon saying things like, "Well, he's a man, he has this right, you don't look at what he has access to." So my supermodel good looks were destroyed with his rape baby, and I just had to accept him screwing other women in my house while turning me into a baby factory. And I was being told things like, "Well, you better just keep your mouth shut and stick around. No one's going to let you leave, and even if you did leave, you can't. We're going to make sure you don't have any money. You can't get a job. You don't have an identity. Where are you going to go? You have no money. You have no ID. Even if you escape, what are you going to do? If you just stick around and keep your mouth shut and start, cooperating, you'll have more freedom. Well, maybe he'll buy you some things. Like, here I was, a doctor and the CIA's top female mind-controlled operative. I don't need him to buy me anything, And then I was told in a very demeaning remark by Barry Gordon, "Well, you can't leave, after all these rape," well, he didn't use the word rape babies. He said, "But you've had, I don't know how many babies. Nobody's going to want you. Your body's a mess." So this is the mental anguish and torment I was faced with. I snapped, and I decided to just fight back and turn his house into a battleground rather than keep escaping and being returned. I wanted him to just be done with it. I wanted to make sure that I was too much trouble and he would just let me go. And he did, but he threw me out with nothing and put me into the hands of monsters like Barry Gordon. And I was mutilated. I had an experimental brain surgery done on me through a setup conducted by another occultist, Dr. Pam Mirabati. I was tortured and gutted by Dr. Neil Handel, who's an occultist. And again, when we looked into this, there were 4 other doctors present in that clinic on West Olympic. On that day, all of them suddenly canceled all their surgeries. There had been 12 to 17 surgeries every day for 5 years prior to that. And then all of a sudden that day, there were no surgeries except me. The staff he used, he'd never used before and never used again. When we looked into them, their information was fake and you couldn't find them anywhere on this planet. Dr. Perot, I was told by Dr. Mark Ravis, an attorney, and Mark Hurwitz, an attorney, disappeared off the face of the earth with his wife and 3 kids. Dr. Mark Ravis eventually liquidated assets and disappeared with his wife and 2 kids. And I believe she's blind, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Neil Handel got on the plane at 6:30 in the morning after I was tortured for 12 hours. My blood was changed, my heart stopped, I was gutted. And Dr. Neil Handel got on the plane in the morning and went to France and didn't come back for a month, which is medical abandonment. I was told later that if you wanted to erase somebody's identity and the story of their life, you had to change all of their blood, because through the air they breathe and the water they drink and the countries they've lived in, if you got a disease like malaria or something that you typically get in Africa, the story of your life is all there. So every drop of my blood was changed. And it's a very painful process if you leak, because then they go in and clean you out in the stomach, and it's just agonizingly painful for quite some time before you heal. I've been victimized by Dr. Simon Orion, and more recently I was mutilated by Dr. William B. Rosenblatt in New York City. And psychosurgical mutilations for mind control and minor amputations, which could lead to major amputations, a program developed by Dr. Jose Delgado, are used in the U.S. military CIA. So these are the things I had to face after Stephen Binion decided, okay, I can't, she's just too much trouble. She really is not going to stand for this. But he threw me out with nothing. These are some of the things I've had to face. And this is the man who bred all these rape babies with me. And there was one in Italy with a homosexual couple. And I was, really brutalized there. Barry Gordon, U.S. Naval Intel CIA, was a part of that. As far as I know, this man, the homosexual, and at least the rape baby he kept are dead. But again, I was given fertility drugs, and I believe I had anywhere from 3 to potentially 5 rape babies with that homosexual, who was a brutal and vicious slave handler. So obviously I have a lot of feelings about these rape babies. How could I have any feeling other than, to be honest, I don't want to hate anything, but I feel hatred. I feel the suffering, the torture, the humiliation. I have no good feelings about them. And they were, I believe, hoping to throw her up in my face and at least make me believe through elaborate charades that she was the rape baby, whether she is or isn't. And when you compare her to Stephen Binion, she looks like him. And Dr. Susan Duve dropped pictures of Jordan in my treatment room, who look a lot like the rape baby I had seen from Stephen Binion, who was brought to satanic rituals. I would see Jordan Duve is a trained operative, so she's not going to school. She's 16 years old, and she was already a working operative. I believe she's an assassin too. So she's running these ops with her mother, and she's a trained actor. She would mimic my hand gestures, and I would see her studying me, and she'd mimic my character, my movement, my hand gestures. She had clearly been debriefed and been given a lot of information about me, which she overused. And it was very clear to me that someone had told her everything about me so that she could try and convince me that we were just two peas in the pod, that she had everything in common with me. This girl is just bizarre. She looks bizarre. She's creepy. She's a bizarre individual. She has absolutely no character whatsoever, or self-respect, or respect for anything. And she knew I didn't like her. So at one point she dropped the baby act, and I saw the vicious side of her. But she would come to the clinic and, sit and stare at me with these sad, longing eyes, like, oh, are you really the one who gave birth to me? And basically this charade. And Karen Hall aided in this. Karen Hall, you have to also realize that with mind control, programming. And Dr. Duve was involved in keeping me drugged and making sure that these mind control programming sounds were used on me. She did something to me once, and I went home and my brain was just wired. Like I had had 10 cups of coffee, and my brain just seemed to be like flipping the channels on the television. I couldn't think, I couldn't talk. I don't know what she did to me, but she did something. And through their repetition and constantly keeping up this elaborate charade, they were trying to convince me that she was the rape baby and that I had to accept her, or that I needed to bond with her. Whether she was or wasn't, this is what they were trying to convince me of. And Karen Hall was constantly telling me, oh, well, I found this kitten when she was 6 months old. People, you have to understand, I was an underage teenager when a lot of this was going on. I was 9 years old. I now have memory of them trying to breed me at the age of 9. And my stomach got big, but it was stillborn. It wasn't it didn't go the full term. I was 9. They give little girls hormones and fertility drugs to advance their little bodies so that they can start raping and breeding them as young as possible. It's easier to do this to a child than it is, of course, an adult or even a teenager for that matter. A 9-year-old child, I didn't even know what was going on. I mean, other kids at school were all making fun of me and saying, oh, ha, 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 fat lady, you look pregnant. But I had no idea. I really didn't. And later I'd be looking at other little girls and thinking, well, why is my stomach flabby? And these other little girls have tight stomachs. And I couldn't figure out what had happened to me. And then I had another rape baby at like 11 or 12. And again, I was given fertility drugs, so I don't know. My stomach was so big, it could have been 3 to 5. I don't, and none of them are reported. No officer has been honest with me. I've been told that Detective Julie Huskins, head of the Violent Crimes Division in Shawnee, Oklahoma, where a lot of this took place, has just lied a blue streak about everything to everyone. So we don't know what's true and what's not and what's out there. We do know that, they have elaborate methods for creating forged documents and birth certificates and this and that. I mean, I had been told by Detective Julie Huskins that they knew the birth certificate was fake. I had been told by other people that had evidence that of other girls that had been trafficked by the Nichols, that there was absolutely no evidence of any birth certificate, death certificate, or adoption certificate. But you don't know, because I'm dealing with a bunch of liars who are part of creating an elaborate scenario, which has to do with protecting the American government and the U.S. military intel CIA, which are a Nazi imperialistic regime taking over this world, and protecting them from exposure or accountability.
One of the things I would like people to understand is what the Nazi scientists brought to the United States, and it was a Nazi scientist that perfected this, and it is a government organization that specifically sponsors false memory syndrome, and it's SMS, and this is what they do. Now, false memory syndrome is based on planting fake memories, over-masking real memories, implanting specific triggers. And what I mean by triggers is, like Laurel was describing earlier with the sounds that they were coming in and playing in her office when she was working. Well, basically what I want people to understand is these sounds are the sounds that they were using when they were basically programming her mind.
Right.
And basically when they do this, they program the mind to accept hand triggers. That is basically Masonic hand signals and hand gestures and hand signs, specifically put in combinations to basically trigger specific key points in the mind once they are seen. These triggers can be used through audio. These triggers can be used through a phone call, through a beep, when you pick up a phone and you hear this beep, 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 or this sequence, or they can be digitally broadcasted into your brain with satellite microwave weaponry. These are the things that the U.S. government is guilty of, and this is what they specifically use to keep control of so many mind control rape victims across the world, and it is very, very, very hard to trace. Because with everyone using cell phones, with everyone watching movies, with everyone listening to music that actually comes from them and their programmers. I mean, specifically, you really don't have anyone that's in the music industry that has not gone through the satanic ritual and is actually put up there and is actual mind control victim to actually control the masses through satanic witchcraft and symbology and Masonic satanic music and lyrics, which go way over your head. One of the most simple examples that I like to use is Madonna's song, It's Like a Prayer. It's a witchcraft incantation. There's nothing like a prayer. It is either a prayer or it is not. The only thing that's like a prayer, that is the opposite of a prayer, is an incantation. And in the midnight hour, I can feel your power. Well, all witches do their sacrificial rituals right at the turn between the last day and the new day. This is Wicca. So even in this song that everyone has sung 1,000 times to themselves, that you're singing witchcraft. Madonna is a huge occultist, but there are so many other people, rappers and other people, that do the same thing. Jay-Z, I mean, the list goes on and on and on, but it goes over people's heads and directly into your subconscious. So I would like to thank everyone for your time, and specifically, I would like to people to know that we have seen Dr. Duve, or I've seen Dr. Duve, and her little man assassin stalking me here in Cancun. And yes, Stephen Binion is known here in Cancun. So I would like to wrap it up with Miss Aston. Is there anything else that you would like to leave the public with to let them know what's been going on with you and anything that you feel that they should know before we wrap things up?
Well, you know, we've talked about the Nazis, and everything is an elaborate charade. When you deal with the CIA, they are professional liars. Dr. Duve was saying that she was of German ancestry, and a number of Germans were coming into the Duve Wellness Center speaking German in thick German accents. Stephen Binion is a descendant of a German Nazi. So this is very real, and it's a real threat, and they are organized. They have, through Freemasonic temples, the Nazis have infiltrated and taken over the U.S. military, the CIA, the court system. They have turned up, under the guise of America spreading freedom and democracy, the Nazis, who are behind the U.S. military, have a military base in every country in this world, and they are heavily brainwashing American soldiers. The Aga Khan, Karim Aga Khan, and his entire family, the Jamaat Khanas are filled with hate. The general consensus about the Holocaust is, what did they do to deserve it? And they are very racist. They're extremely racist against Jewish and black people, and they're involved in the genocide of Africans. And you can't help but notice the pattern of all of the Aga Khans, Zara, Hussein, and Karim Aga Khan, all married to blonde-haired, blue-eyed German Nazis. Every one of them. He's currently married to a German Nazi. So is Hussein, and Zara's divorced. So the woman who posed as my mother in Naval Intel CIA, Carol Jean Starkey Nichols, when they go to a family reunion, it is a sea of platinum, blonde-haired, blue-eyed German Nazis. This is very, very real, and it seemed to be very prevalent at the Duve Wellness Center. Whether they wanted, to show me this for whatever reason, it was right up in my face. So people need to take this very seriously.
I would also like to thank the people out there for supporting Laurel Aston's page on Facebook, my page, Dismantle the Central Intelligence Agency. I will make sure that I will post the note of Dr. Duve under this video, the last video that we did. I'm going to take down because hackers hacked it. Probably Dr. Duve paid people to do it, and the links are hard to access now. But I would like to actually thank them because it just gives us more validity to prove that we're on the right track, that you're actually gonna stoop that low because you're scared. You're scared of the truth and scared of what we're doing and what we're exposing. And to all the women and children out there that are going through this, stay strong. Know that we're doing this specifically for you and no one else. And to all of the other people that really are having a hard time understanding that this is very real, and most of this stuff is not for the general public that watches TV, because TV, if you watch TV within 4 seconds, you're submitted to mind control programming. That's what TV is. Nazis invented TV, and they used it as a way to administer mind control. So on that note, I'd like to thank everybody for your support and your time. Stay blessed and always continue to walk in the light. Thank you, Ms. Aston, for your time, and we will do another video as soon as possible. She's getting her memory back, and hopefully we will be able to cover more on this subject from Cancun, Mexico, which is turning out to be really interesting and a nice place. But nevertheless, we do have a CIA agent living next to us, an enforcer. He's American, and there are a lot of Americans here. And I've continuously exposed these things. Miss Aston herself was brought to Cancun as a young lady and a child.
I was here with Stephen Binion as a teenager. He did a lot of work here. The CIA American CIA is all over Cancun.
Yes, they are, and they're all over Mexico. I mean, the things that they're doing to these Mexican children under the cloak of the cartel and
which they control, and
Santa Maria cult. Mr. Binion is well known in Mexico. So I can tell you that right now, and all these occultists are well known here, because the Mexican people are a lot like the Romanian people. They know, but they don't speak about it.
Well, I feel like I'm still surrounded by U.S. military intel, CIA. I mean, I'm surrounded. I've had Stephen Binion's people around me. I didn't really escape him because I've had his people around me doing his dirty work and keeping me down and keeping my memory from returning. Just for starters, he wasn't just my CIA mind control slave handler programmer. He was my husband, and he threw me out with nothing. So, now after a lifetime of slavery at the hands of this man, I have nothing, which is another reason he wanted my memory erased. So, I couldn't consider demanding my legal share of the estate. And we're talking about one of the richest men in the world. So that had a lot to do with it. And I believe that Dr. Rosenblatt played a part in that. He may not have ever met him or heard his name, but he was working for people under Stephen Binion's control. I would say Karen Hall was talking to me about her daughter. She calls her Keenan. We have no way of knowing how true this is because Karen Hall is an occultist involved in human trafficking. She was telling me that her daughter Keenan was teaching gymnastics to children in Mexico. She is a black belt in karate, a semi-professional surfer, and a semi-professional gymnast. And Keenan's, and if this is true, then all I can tell you is that Keenan's mother, a woman calling herself Karen Hall, is absolutely involved with human mind control slavery. And Karen Hall represents herself as a nurse at Brownsville Hospital, where I heard there was a lot of forging of birth certificates. Again, I can't really confirm this, but I do know what I saw out of this woman calling herself Karen Hall. So the fact that her daughter is supposedly here teaching gymnastics to children in Mexico is very disturbing.
Okay, well, thank you, people.